Yeah, right. And also our speaker is here, Associate Professor Dr. Cham, Assistant Professor Dr. Eugene Au, right? And our Dean of School, Prof. Florence, is here. So thank you all for attending for today pre-conference seminar, how to publish successfully, authors and reviewers perspective, right? So before we start the seminar, let me give some of the reminder here, right? So for those who actually attended, you can just change your background, virtual background with later we will actually post in the chat box here. So make sure you have actually changed your virtual background so that later on we would at the end of the section we will have a group photo section. All right. So now and in the chat box right now you will see the registration link. Okay. So for please register um, using the link and then attend the whole sections for this afternoon. So certificate of attendance will be issued for those who actually registered and also attend. So without further ado, let me introduce our speakers of today. Right, so we have Associate Professor Dr. Cham with us, right? So he is the Deputy Dean at UCSI Graduate Business School, UCSI University Malaysia, right? It is our honor to have you, Dr. Cham, right? Okay, so Dr. Cham is also appointed as a research associate for the University Putra Malaysia UPM and research advisor at Institute Koperasi Malaysia IKMA. So he is actively involved in training, consultancy projects, and supervisions of postgraduate students. So his publications are seen in various international journals that include the International Journals of Tourism Research, Journals of Hospitality, Marketing and Management, Journals of Hospitality and Tourism Research, Journals of Retailing and Consumer Service, Internet Research, Technological, Forecasting and Social Change, International Journals of Bank Marketing, Asia Pacific Journals of Marketing and Logistics, Industrial Management and Data System, Computers and Education, Current Psychologies, Telematics and Informatics, to name a few. So beside his involvement as an editorial board members of several international journals, Dr. Cham also currently serves as the editor-in-chief for the Journals of Marketing Advance and Practice and as a guest editor for the International Journals of Bank Marketing. Right. So yeah, we are really honored that we can have both of the speakers here with us to share on the knowledge on publications, right? So next we also have Assistant Professor Dr. Eugene Au. Okay, so his current research work focus on consumer behavior, influencer marketing, branding, and technology usage. His research has been published in reputable journals such as Journals of Advertising, Journals of Business Research, Technological Forecasting and Social Change, Computers in Human Behavior, Internet Research, Informations, Technologies and People, Journal of Retailing and Consumer Service, Marketing Intelligence and Planning, Journal of Hospitality Marketing and Management, International Journals of Contemporary Hospitality Management, Tourism Management, Perspective, and among others. In addition, he has won the Young Researcher Awards, okay, a big achievement, and Rising Researcher Awards at the school and university level, respectively, from UCSI University Malaysia. So Eugene also is an active reviewer for many international journals such as European Journals and Marketing, Psychology, Marketing, Internet Research, Journals of Business Research, Industrial Management, and Data System. So currently, he serves as the editorial board member for the Industrial Management and Data System, Journals of Computer and Information System, Journals of Workplace, Behavioral Health, and Bottom Line. Last but not least, Eugene has won Emerald Literati Awards for Excellence Outstanding Reviewer Awards 2020 by Asia Pacific Journal of Marketing and Logistics. His research has been recognized for the Best Paper Award in Third International Tourism and Retail Service Management Conference, right? So it's a long introduction, right? But really shows that they really um, um, spend a lot of time in their research and also publications, right? So without further ado, let's all the participants here and GSP lecturers and also students, let us welcome Dr. Cham and also Dr. Eugene to share with us, right? Thank you so much. So yeah, Associate Professor Dr. Cham. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kimi, for your introductions. All right, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation from Sergi University and also Emerald Publishing, and also to the organizing committee, Dr. Kimi, Professor Lawrence, and the team. Thank you so much for having us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our session for today. So our session today will be slightly different compared to others. We were going to use a different approach whereby this is more to more to sharing instead of teaching you what to do. So we will be hearing, we will be here to share with you what are the tips and tricks that you can consider, for your publication purpose. So our session will be divided into two parts. The first part that I'm going to share with you from the author's point of view. So what you should do in your manuscript preparations in order for you to nail, to find a good place for your journal. All right. Secondly, the next part will be handled by my colleagues. Dr. Eugene, he's going to share with you some of the tips or tricks. So for you on handling, the reviewer comments and so on and so forth. All right. Without further ado, let me share the slide from my end. Okay, guys, can you see my screen?
Yes, Dr. Cham. That's great.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, so let us start now. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, before I move on, please allow me to walk you through what is the meaning of research. I believe that many of us, when we are here today, is to learn how to publish your manuscript. Am I right? So first thing first, before we proceed further, let us go to the fundamental part of the meaning of research. So what is research? Okay, research is basically a combination of two keywords here. Number one is read, another one is search. So when you put these two keywords together, it's known as research. It's a process of searching for information for the question that you have in mind. So in simple terms, research is basically the process of search for information. Like for example, if you want to buy a phone, so before you deciding on what model that you should have, definitely you will need to look for information being from online and offline. So from there, right after you get all the information that you want, somehow, some way, or directly or indirectly, you also conduct a rigorous and systematic inquiry. This is the part that you're going to ask yourself, what do I want? So how big is the capacity of the battery I want, and what is the performance of the camera that I need? So from all the considerations that you have, subsequently, it will bring you to the subsequent point, that is your discovery. So basically, when it comes to the discovery, this is the time that you're going to make decisions whether do you want to go with that particular phone or not. So when you put everything into the perspective, right, research is basically an organized way and systematic way of finding answers to the question. So in order for you to come up with something interesting, particularly when it comes to research, it's all come from a fundamental question that you want to address. So whether we like it or not, for those who are doing your postgraduate studies right here at this moment of time, definitely whenever you want to share your research with your peers or with your supervisor, definitely the first question they will pop to you is, what is the originality of your study? So when I use the word originality over here, is the person who asks you this question is they want to know what are the things that you want to address. And most importantly, how you need to differentiate that your study can be distinctively different compared to the previous work that are available in the literatures. So as a researcher yourself, you must consistently challenge yourself. What are the things that you can prove to the world that, hey, looks, I have something new to offer. So that is all basically about the originality of your work. All right, so when it comes to research, right, there are 4 keywords that you need to take note here, ladies and gentlemen. First thing first, systematic. So whenever it comes to the group research, you must have a systematic process. This is the part that you're going to have a different sets of procedures and steps that you need to follow. All right. So of course, when you look at your manuscript itself, you know that when you start with the introductions, definitely you will have your literature review, research methodology, data analysis, and last but not least, it will come to the conclusion and also the discussion of your result. So apart from that, your research must be organized in a very structured way. So therefore, when you look at the methodology itself, you know that there are some of the things that you need to address. So for example, if you're doing something related to quantitative study, of course, one of the fundamental questions that usually throw to you is who are your sample and what would be your sample size? All right. So all these things require justifications. All right. As far as research is concerned, to me, right, there is no right or wrong as long as you're able to justify whatever approach that you go for when it comes to your research. All right. The third point that you need to take note is basically finding answers. So like I said earlier, research question is the core of your entire research. So in order for you to come up with something interesting, definitely you need to have an interesting research question. All right. So the next one is question again. So that is what I mean. Whenever it comes to the interesting research, everything starts from the question that you want to address. All right, these are some of the characteristics of good research that you need to take note. First thing first, you must have the clear defined purpose. Of course, as far as research is concerned, right? Before we embark in certain kind of research, we must know what is the aim of our study. So subsequently, right after that, we need to know what is the detailed process that we need to go through. So right after that, you need to thoroughly plan the design of your work. So of course, this is the time that you're going to sit down, strategize how you're going to, for example, how you're going to collect your data, how you're going to analyze it, and so on and so forth. So apart from that, you must also take note of the high ethical standard, because whenever you comes to the good journals and also good publisher, right, definitely they will request you to submit the ethical forms if, let's say, some of the papers that you publish with them. All right. So apart from that, the presentation itself must be unambiguous. So you must present your work in a very clear, precise manner so that when people follow your work, they can understand what you are doing. So apart from that, when it comes to research, every single conclusion must be justified. So like I said earlier, justification is the most important things when it comes to research. So whether you like it or not, whenever you submit your manuscript for the first time, of course, it will go through the review process. So from the review process, right, you will receive comments. If, let's say, the editor-in-chief didn't reject your paper outright. So once the reviewers' comment come back, then you need to address every single part of it. If, let's say, you disagree with them, definitely you need to give justification why you disagree with the comments given by the reviewer. Of course, I'm not going to explain this in detail because it's going to be covered by my colleagues later on. So the next one is limitation must be addressed. As far as research is concerned, I believe that many of us, we have constraint when it comes to our research, particularly when it comes to our sample size. For those who are doing research, right, particularly from the quantitative school, definitely we only have certain samples that we have for our study. So for example, like my study, I usually will go for 500 to 600 sample. Definitely, I know that this will be the limitation. But anyway, in order for me to convince my reader, the reviewer, and also examiner, if let's say I'm doing a PhD study, right, definitely I need to justify why I go for that particular numbers of sample. All right, so these are some of the characteristics of bad research that we need to take note. Number one, plagiarizing other works. This is very important. So even though if you like some idea from the papers that you want to refer to, make sure that you cite the paper accordingly and make sure that you do not plagiarize others. So apart from that, manipulation of the data. I know that all of you know about this thing, but just allow me to be frank on us, ladies and gentlemen. Many of the good journals nowadays require you to submit your data upon acceptance of your paper. You won't be surprised that some of the editor behind the scene, they will run the data again and to check whether whatever you presented in your manuscript is correct or vice versa. So that's very important. So never ever manipulate your data. You never know, someone will check on your work and they will find your fault. So what happened if you're being caught on that particular issue is your reputation will be tarnished. And for those who are in academics, for those who have just started your career as a researcher, this is the thing that you really need to take note, because it's going to determine your career based on these particular matters. Right. The third point is presenting information which is not true. I believe that many of us, when we want to attract the attentions of the reader, most of the times, we will try to come up with something controversial so that people can follow and understand what we want to express. And this is also one of the strategy that used by many researchers to create awareness and also to attract attentions. But again, when you're presenting something which is not true, might also land you in the deep trouble if you don't have any evidence to back you up. So ladies and gentlemen, whenever you want to come up with the controversial statement or something that you do not have the evidence for it, please cross-check with whatever things that you have with you. Most importantly, the reports or even the evidence that you have with you, you must know where the source that you get from. All right. Next one is misleading respondent. Of course, this is one of the main issue that we usually have when it comes to research, is simply because some of the researchers, they want to control how the respondents respond to their questionnaire, for instance. So somehow, some way, they mislead the respondent. So this is not a good practice, ladies and gentlemen, because if you mislead your respondent, definitely you know that at the end of the day, whatever you found in your study will not be genuine anymore. All right. So to make the long story short, research is a journey. We take it one step at a time. I believe that many of our participants here today, all of you are doing a PhD right now. So don't give up. Research is a very enjoyable journey if you like it. All right. All right. So now I'm going to walk you through all the things about publications. So first thing first, why we need to publish. So publishing is one of the necessary steps in the scientific research process, because whatever you found from your research, right, you must have the outlet to present the knowledge that you have created. So of course, when you look at the academic point of view, for those who are teaching at the university, definitely you need publications to climb, when it comes to your career progressions. So of course, research also will make you stand out compared to the rest, particularly for those who are in the academic world, because having a PhD nowadays is very common. So if you have your PhD, but without research, you are just the same like what others have. So research is one of the only weapon that can make you different compared to the rest. So this is something for us to take note. All right. So of course, I'm not here in the positions to force you to do research, but I'm here to share with you the beauty part of research so that you can appreciate it and can bring it with you throughout your career progressions later on. Okay, so what the next thing that I would like to discuss with you here is basically what to publish. So the things that you need to publish is basically new and original results from your work. So of course, if you have some interesting thing for you to share, definitely you can do it through research itself. I still remember many years ago when I started my research in the area of medical tourism. During that time, many of my friends told me that, Cham, you shouldn't do that because this area is so new. You will have a trouble to getting literatures to support you during that time. Whatever they say is true during that time, because back in the years of 2010 and 2011, when I started my research in medical tourism, I really had a hard time. So, however, I'm quite persistent and I know that what I want to do. So I hold on to my belief and I move on in terms of my career directions, particularly when it comes to the area of medical tourism. So thanks God, everything went well. So I published quite numbers of papers in the area of medical tourism. And what makes me different compared to the rest is I'm actually being consulted, in this area whenever it comes to this kind of study. I still remember I have been invited by the Korea Tourism Board to sit into one of their committee related to medical tourism when it comes to strategic planning for their country. So that is something you will get, when you do something that you love and that you're passionate about. All right. So what to publish also includes of manuscript that advance the knowledge. So of course, the main reason why we do a certain study is because we want to advance, the current knowledge that we found in the literatures. And this is the time that we can make ourselves to be different compared to others. So what not to be published, of course, it includes reports of no scientific interest, meaning to say that you just publish something that's nothing to do with scientific evidence. So this is something that you shouldn't publish. Apart from that, out of date work also you must, not publish at all. So apart from that, duplication of previously published work, don't do this because there are quite numbers of researchers, for those who submitted their papers, right? In fact, they actually duplicated from the previous work. You won't be surprised many of the reviewer actually, read a lot about your area of research. So of course, if let's say they came across something that you presented in your work, right, before, definitely they will question you. All right. So if you're doing a PhD, of course, if let's say you're being caught in this sense, definitely it will land you in the disciplinary issue. So something for us to consider and take note about. So apart from that, you also shouldn't publish anything that is incorrect or unacceptable conclusion, meaning to say that it is sort of something that is controversial, something that you do not have an evidence to back you up. Because when it comes to research, right, whatever you presented in your work, you have to understand that it will travel across the globe. Because, for example, if let's say I publish with Emerald, so this paper that I publish with a journal of Emerald will go through all the libraries throughout the world. So the readers will go through my work. If let's say they spotted that any fault or any mistake in my paper, definitely they can confront me directly by writing an email to me. Apart from that, if let's say some of the researchers, right, they can actually challenge you by coming out with a new paper that highlight that whatever you published earlier are wrongs. So that is something that for us to take note, when it comes to what not to publish. So how to get started? So first thing first, you must strategize your plans. So as a researcher yourself, you need to be resourceful. You need to have a plan, So like the saying goes, if you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, you are actually planning to fail. So this is something that we need to take note as a researcher. So apart from that, you must also consistently read, because by reading, you will learn about a lot of things that actually progress in your area of research. So apart from that, you must also think about why you want to publish your work. And this is the answers to this why could be the motivation for you to pursue on what you are doing right now. All right. Apart from that, you must identify your audience. So of course, different journals, different outlets will have different audience. So of course, before you submit a paper to that particular journal, you must know who are the readers. So of course, the way of writing it, the way of presenting your idea, all these things must be well presented to suit the need of the audience itself. All right. So before you submit your paper for any journals out there, these are some of the checklists that you can actually consider before you proceed further. First thing first, you must ask yourself, is the journal peer review or not? All right. So secondly, who is the journal's audience? All right. The third one is, what is the average time to print? And then the next one, what is the journal's impact factor? This is more related for those who want to publish in SSCI, and SCI and so on and so forth. Okay, what makes a good manuscript? Basically, it must consist of the scientific message, that is clear and useful to the reader. Apart from that, a good manuscript also consists of the writings that flow in the logical manner, meaning to say that when I go through your papers, I can understand what is happening from the beginning until the end. And that is what we determine a good manuscript. Apart from that, it must be formatted to best showcase your work. But this one, you do not need to worry. If let's say you are publishing your paper with Emirates, they already have a template for you to follow. And just for your information, right, Emerald also having one of the best abstract in the world. So when you look at all the journals published by Emerald, right, by looking at the abstract, you can actually get the idea of what is presented for the entire paper through the abstract itself. All right. So apart from that, a good manuscript must also be written in a style that message the scientific evidence can be transmitted effectively. So apart from that, you must also take into considerations the importance of the keywords. Yeah. Why I say keywords is important is simply because whenever people want to look at the area of your research, right, usually these people do not know you. All right. So what they did is they will go to their Google and they will type in something that they want. For example, they will type in medical tourism in Malaysia. So when they type in those keywords, right, it will somehow, some way, your name will come out if let's say you're working on something within that area. So that is the important parts of keywords, to make your papers and make yourself to be more visible in your area of research. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the common journal indexing. I'm sorry, I need to go a little bit faster. I hope that you all don't mind because the time is quite short for me. So I need to cover everything before I pass it on to my colleagues. All right, so these are some of the common journal indexing. So we have Clarivate. Clarivate is basically formerly known as Thomson Reuters, or some of us, we call it ISI in the past. So of course, this is one of the best platform that we should target on. So the second one would be Scopus. Scopus is basically Elsevier maintained citation database. All right, both Scopus and Clarivate are important in the sense that it usually used by the ranking system, to determine the ranking of the university. Okay, so like let's say for those who are doing research, particularly in the business context, you may also look into the indexing system like ABDC or from the Australia Business Council. And also you can also look at ABS list from UK. So these are all the indexing system that you can actually refer to when it comes to business area. All right, these are some, don't worry about this. Later on, I will pass the slides to the organizer and they will send it to all of you. All right, so these are, like I mentioned earlier, these are the common journal indexing, Clarivate, Web of Science, and also Scopus. So this is how Web of Science look like. So you can type in the journals and you can see their impact factors as well. All right, apart from that is Scopus. So the next one is I will share with you the review and editorial process. And it's because some of you might ask me, Cham, if let's say I want to submit a paper to a journal, so what are the processes that I would need to go through? So ladies and gentlemen, this is what you will go through when it comes to the review process. So I've been sitting in editorial board for some of the journals. So these are all the common process that you need to go through as a researcher when you submit the papers for the publication considerations. So first thing first, when you submit a papers, right? All right, so you will start at the first part. So right after that, usually the content editors or assistant editor, they will look at your papers, whether it meet the basic requirement or not. If the answer to this is yes, then they will assign the reviewer or they will pass it on to the associate editor to pass it on to the reviewer. If let's say you doesn't meet whatever you presented in your manuscript does not meet the requirement, then you will be straight away reject. So this is very important for you to prepare your paper well according to the template required by the journal itself. So right after that, once it's yes over here, then you will go to assign reviewer. So of course, when it comes to a reviewer assignment, you will not know who are your reviewers because this is what we mean by double-blind review process. When I use the word double here, usually most of the journal will send it to 2 reviewers. So, okay, so for these 2 reviewers, they will go through your piece of work and they will give their recommendations. All right, there are few recommendations that usually we give. The first one is they will accept, but this is once in a blue moon case, and usually it won't happen. So the second one is they will give you comments, but they will classify your case as minor. Some of them they will classify as major. And the last but not least, which is the one that we don't like the most, is reject. So how editor-in-chief make decision is basically they will look at the reviewer feedbacks. If majority of the reviewers reject your work, definitely this will help the editor-in-chief to straight away send you the email that your paper has been rejected. All right. So in order for you to play safe, you need to prepare your paper well. Okay, you need to argue your case, even though you have limitation in terms of numbers of words, but still, you know, the important gist of your papers must be there and well presented. So if you manage to see it through your reviewer, definitely the editorial team will send your papers to you for you to revise the paper. If let's say you manage to get it done, then your paper will go through the same process again, for the second review, third review, fourth review, and so on and so forth. So, okay, I still remember there are one of my paper that actually gone through 8 times review, just even you have some typo. In fact, the editor-in-chief or even the editorial team will revert the paper to you, ask you to amend before they consider it further. So it depends, who are you dealing with. So as a researcher yourself, you must always be professional, deal with the things diligently and professionally. Okay, just make sure that you follow whatever already mentioned by them and whatever stated by them when it comes to the comments given to you. So if everything goes well, just assume everything goes well, then your paper will be accepted. So of course, this is the most happiest part in our life as a researcher ourselves. All right. So, but again, before you can reach to this particular stage, of course, you need to go through all the processes that I highlight above. All right. So for your paper to get accepted, right, it's only happen, not something common as well. What I said so is because as a researcher, we also deal with a lot of rejection. Rejection in the sense that when your paper is not up to the level that required by the journal, you won't be surprised that the editor-in-chief will straight away reject your paper without further consideration. And that is what we call desk rejection. All right, that is common as well, because if let's say your paper doesn't fit the theme of the journal, you also will get desk rejected. So just before you submit your paper to any of the journal out there, make sure that you read the aim of the journal so that you understand whether your paper fit that particular journals or not. All right, so these are some of the samples of editorial email that I received before. So for example, when it comes to European Business Review, this paper have been accepted, Journal Channel accepted, but again, I also received rejection as well. So what I'm trying to tell you is when it comes to research kind of journey, right? Not everything is going to be perfect, So of course, you need to learn throughout the process itself. Because life is a learning process anyway. So, rejection is also part of it, because whenever a journal rejected you, if let's say some of them already gone through, allow your paper to gone through the review process, of course, you will get all these comments given by the reviewers. So perhaps what you can do, you can improve your paper based on the reviewers' comment, and subsequently you can improve your manuscript and submit it to other journals. All right, these are some of the common publishers that we can find out there. All right, you have Emerald Publishing here, you have Taylor Francis, Springers, Wiley, and others. All right. All right, so some of you might ask me, Cham, if let's say I want to go with publications, what are the formats? What is the format that I need to follow? So it's quite consistent and similar to your thesis itself, right? Journal, manuscript, basically they will follow a format called IMRAD format. Okay, what it means by IMRAD format is basically a type of format that that consists of introductions, literature review, methodology, research finding, and also the discussion of your result. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to cover that in a short while. All right. So just before I go to IMRAD straight away, please allow me to share with you why we need scientific writing. All right, the main purpose of scientific writing is to communicate your new findings with the peers and also the readers. So of course, when you preparing a scientific writings, right, the idea that you presented must be clear, simple, and well-ordered. And of course, when it comes to the writing itself, please make sure that you use proper English, because all the minor, tiny things related to grammatical errors or typos, right? In fact, it can easily annoy the reviewer and even the editor-in-chief. So if your paper does not, prepare in a good manner, particularly when it comes to the language proficiency, of course, the chances for your paper to be rejected is always higher compared to the rest. All right. So next one, if let's say you do not go for scientific writing, whatever you found in your research, right, may be lost, without a written record. And that is the reason why we need publication. So apart from that, scientific writing and also publication also help you to disseminate the knowledge that you found and to be shared with all the audience throughout the world. All right, these are some of the essential part of the scientific paper. First thing first, you will have your title. All right, abstract, introductions. Definitely, we have literature review over here. And you have methods, result, discussion, summary, references, and also acknowledgement. These are the common, elements that you need to have in your research paper. All right. So these are some of the common type of the manuscript that you can find. All right. First thing first is a research paper. So usually we will go with research paper. Research paper is basically an original articles that you collected the data and you write about it. And it usually follows the IMRAT format that I mentioned earlier. The second one is what we call as a review of review articles. This is basically the summary of the research of a certain topic. All right. Apart from that, we also have a short communication. Short communication usually written by those who are very good in the area of that particular research. All right. So apart from that, we have also case study. It is very interesting if, let's say, any of the company willing to be part of your case when you conduct your research itself. So apart from that, we also have a methods paper. Methods paper is the kind of paper that you challenge, the existing methodology that has been practiced, all right, by the existing literatures. So why people go for methods paper is because this is also one of the platform for you to attract citation. To attract citation in a sense that when you propose something new, of course, you need to argue your case why your proposed new method is more meaningful or more beneficial compared to the previous practices. So of course, when you argue your case, you must also give a lot of evidence to back you up. So right after you manage to get a paper published, of course, people will refer to you. And most of the papers, when it comes to methods paper, if let's say you are looking in the quantitative background, right? So it could be the nature of the software that you use. For instance, in the past, we have AMOS, then subsequently it moved on to SmartPLS. Then later on, it will move on to another kind of software. Along the transition of the software itself, there are many researchers who will argue that why we need to use a certain software for certain reason. So the reason that they would like to put forward, definitely they need to justify why that particular software that they opted for is more meaningful compared to others. So of course, you must argue your case when it comes to methods paper, yeah? All right, so this is what I mentioned earlier when it comes to IMRAT format. First thing first, you will have your introductions. All right, of course, also the literature review over here. All right, so the third one is your research method, result, analysis, and also your discussion. So whatever kind of paper that you intend to submit, regardless of the publisher itself, you need to follow this kind of presentation. All right. So basically, when it comes to IMRAT, right, the first part is always the introductions. Why did you start? All right. So you need to answer all this question. All right. The second part is your method. So what did you do? The third one is the result. What did you find? And also fourth, discussions. What does it all mean? So throughout the entire process, right, in your research, you must have the answers for all these four questions. All right. So technically speaking, this is how it looks like when it comes to IMRAT format. So you can actually go through it, and then you can make comparison with all the journals that papers that you downloaded from the databases. what you will notice, right? All these papers that you're going to read later on will have the similar format. And that is what we call IMRAD format. All right, regardless of whether the paper is from Emerald or even from Taylor Francis, Science Direct, and others, doesn't matter. They will still follow the IMRAD format. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next one that I'm going to cover over here would be all the elements that you need to have in your papers. So first thing first, when it comes to your manuscript preparations, in order for you to come out with a good paper, that have the higher chances to be accepted for publications, definitely you must have a good introductions. So in introductions, right, you must have all these things, ladies and gentlemen. First thing first, you must have the introductions. But this is also the part that highlight the background of your study. So apart from that, you must have a good problem statement. Like I said earlier, whenever it comes to research, right, problem statement is the most important thing because this is your selling point as well. So if you do not have the interesting problem statement, in fact, you will be questioned by the reviewers later on, because the first thing first that usually go through by the reviewer is basically your problem statement. So you must argue your case well. The same things applies to your PhD study as well. Your problem statement is the fundamental of your entire research. Okay. So subsequently, from the problem statement, you will need to have your research question objective. All right. Doing a research is similar like what happened to us as a human. So for example, as a human ourselves, whenever we have a problem with us, right, definitely you will ask yourself, why this thing happened or how this thing happened. Am I right? So all these 7 wife and 1 husband question is basically the question that you have in mind. So right after you have all these questions, definitely you will need to find a solution and answer to all these questions. Am I right? So finding solution to all these questions is basically the objective. So I hope that you can relate, our life as a human with research, they are quite pretty the same. All right. So apart from that, in your research also, you must highlight the significance of your study. Okay, what it means by significance of the study is basically you need to spell out why your study is so interesting for people to read and understand your work. All right. So of course, whenever you comes to the significance of the study, I would assume I need to look into 2 parts, 2 things from you. The first one would be your possible theoretical contributions, and the second one would be the practical contributions from you. All right. So if you want to know this thing better, you can actually download some of the papers from Emerald Publishing. So from there, you can get a lot of information in the journals itself. All right. Okay, these are some of the tips and tricks that I would like to share with you. First thing first, when you write your introductions, right, you should present the nature and the scope of the problem investigated. This is very important, like I mentioned earlier. The problem itself is always the backbone of your research. So how you actually develop this, it can come in 2 forms. Number 1 is from your review of the literatures. On the second part is you can actually talk to the experts out there. So from all these informations that you receive directly from the experts and also from the review of the literature, it can help you to understand your area of research better. So from there, you can easily spot what are the weaknesses across the literatures that allows you to argue it as a gap for you to address. All right. So apart from that, you must also state the problems that you identify. Of course, this is what I keep on highlighting earlier since just now. And also you need to highlight why you need to conduct this study. What could be the possible benefits that people will gain from your work? So all these things must be responded positively. So the last but not least, when it comes to the end of the introduction, is we do assume that you will have the contributions to be proposed when it comes to the existing body of knowledge. So you need to highlight to the reader why your study is beneficial to the existing literatures. And this is also the part that how you're going to come out with your own value of your study that fit the area of your research. All right. So subsequently, once you're done with your introduction.
Yes, Dr. Chan, sorry, we can't see your face right now, but we can see your slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you see me now?
Yes, that's great. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, the next one that you need, thank you. All right, the next thing that you need to look at is your literature review. So, okay,
Sorry. Sorry, Dr. Chan. We accidentally mute everyone. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, thank you. Sorry for the technical issue. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, no worries. Thanks. Okay, the second part of your manuscript is basically the literature review part. All right. So literature review is basically the storytelling part. This is the part that you're going to tell us what is actually happened in the past and how you actually relate the existing theory into your study. So of course, it still depends on what kind of research approach that you opted for. So for example, for those who are using a quantitative approach, definitely you know that your research will be designed based on the deductive approach, meaning to say that you will have a theory and subsequently you will develop hypothesis and you're going to test it later on. But on the other hand, for those who are doing qualitative research, it's going to be the other way around, meaning to say that you will start with observation, then only then you will come out with your own theory later on at the end of the day. So it all depends. So when it comes to literature review, it might be different for those who are going with a quantitative background versus qualitative. But again, this is a section that you're going to tell us what is actually happened in the past and how you can relate it to your study. All right. All right, so what is literature review? This is a quick one. Okay, so it basically allows you to introduce what have been done in the past and how you can relate it to your existing study. And this is also one of the significant part when it comes to your research, because by explaining, the theory itself and also the concept that you included in your work, you will somehow, some way give the overall pictures how your research model being developed at the end of the review process itself. So of course, when in literature review, you also focus on specific interests. So for example, if you're in the area of marketing, definitely, I assume that whatever materials that you read and use, whatever citation that you included in your write-up must be marketing related. All right. Of course, if let's say you are working on something new, if let's say you couldn't find any existing evidence for your area of research, what you can use a technique called theory borrowing technique that is actually allow you to use some of the evidence from something or some context that is quite similar to your existing work. All right. So these are some of the guides that you can consider in writing your literature review. Of course, if you ask me this question, right, the ultimate advice that I can give to you is read and read and read. The more you read, you will learn the technique of writing through your reading itself. All right, first thing first, when it comes to literature review, decide on the topic. I believe that none of us will have this issue because when you're submitting your proposal for your postgraduate study or before you begin writing your research paper, definitely you already know the topic that you want to cover. So subsequently, you must identify the literatures that you will review. And this is very important because it will reflect what are the sources that you included in your study. So for example, the journal that you read, the citation that you included, as a reviewer myself, I hope that you actually cite from a good publishers and also a good journals. So if you cited all the papers up from the open access and also paid journal, definitely this will be a limitations to your work. And if you found out, if let's say for me, if I found out that most of the citation, let's say 30 or 40% out of it is not from the authority in the area, definitely I know that you are not doing right things when it comes to reviewing the literature. So in that situations, somehow, some way, I will have impressions that your work is not good enough. So therefore, I will have a tendency, to reject your paper. So as a researcher yourself, you must always be sensitive in these kind of things and try to put yourself in the shoes of the reviewer. All right, because when they review your work, right, they're actually not being paid at all. They do it voluntarily and free of charge. So of course, they would assume that whatever you have submitted, all right, is able to convince them and also worth the time they spend on your paper itself. So next one is you must synthesize your work. Synthesize here means you have to read, understand, and present everything based on your own understanding and your own words. So with all the process you go through, like summarizing and synthesizing, then you will write your review. All right, so the next one is research methodology. So of course, if let's say any of you have any difficulties in writing your research methodologies, right, you can always consider this Research Onion. Research Onion is one of the very best guide that you can use for you to writing up your research methodology, sorry. All right, apart from that, for those who are from the quantitative school, so sampling part, or even you're from qualitative as well, sampling is also one of the key area that you need to address. So these are all the steps that you need to observe when it comes to your writing part. So for example, you will start to identify your target populations, then subsequently you will determine your sampling frame, sampling strategy, technique, sample size, and also finally you will select your actual sampling unit. I have to apologize that I'm not able to go into detail, yeah? So I just go through touch and go. So in case you have any question, maybe we will keep it to the Q&A part. All right, so the next one would be result and discussion in your manuscript. So when it comes to the result and discussions, of course, when for the result part, right, as a researcher yourself, you need to make sure that you examine your data or analyze your data professionally. So first thing first, whatever raw data that you have, you must really screen it through before you proceed with further analysis. So of course, like for example, the issues of missing data, normality, outliers, etc. are those things that you really need to address at the beginning of the stage. All right, before you proceed with the further analysis, particularly when it comes to hypothesis testing. So right after that, you will proceed with the discussion of the result. And it is very important for you to make sure that whatever you've written over here must be well presented so that your reader able to understand what is actually going on in your area of research. Okay, so tips of publishing. Yep, I almost come to the end. Just bear with me, another few slides. All right, tips. First thing first, before you submit your paper for publication purpose, these are some of the checklists for you to consider. Number one, you must ask yourself, have you done something new by reading at the paper that you prepared? Secondly, is there anything challenging in your work? All right, so the third question you need to ask yourself, will your result influence other researchers? So have you provided solution to the difficult problems? You need to have the answer for all these questions. If you don't have that, meaning to say that your paper is not innovative enough. All right. Apart from that, you must also highlight the worth of your manuscript because you are competing with all other papers, that submit to, let's say, one journal for the consideration of publication. You have to remember that every single journal nowadays, they have a lot of backlog. Backlog happens is because during the COVID-19, this is actually happens to all the researcher and also academic, just simply because we have too much of time spending at home and nothing to do during that time. Many of us writing a papers, preparing a research paper to be submitted for publication purpose. So, during the MCO itself, I still remember, in fact, I can publish quite numbers of papers and also prepare quite numbers of manuscript during that time. So during that particular time, a lot of researchers submitted. So of course, when it comes to the journals, they only can publish certain number for certain volume. So meaning to say that you are competing with the rest. So for example, if one of the journals can only publish 8 papers for a volume, if let's say the editor-in-chief, has like 1,000 submission. So of course, he or she can only choose the top 8. So what will happen to the rest 82 and 92? So they would straight away rejected it. So in that sense, you need to make sure that all the wordiness of your paper must be spelled out effectively before you submit to a journal. All right. So the next thing is you must have the clear writing. So the next tips that I would like to share with you is write now and edit later, because writing is always a practice. So if you don't write, nothing will happen. If you write, at least you can touch up later on. So apart from that, look at who are the audience of the journal. So subsequently, then you choose the right journal, follow the submission guideline. Okay, this is very important. All right. Proofread your article, make sure that there are they are minimal. I don't say no, minimal grammatical errors and typos. And of course, when it comes to research publication from the author's point of view, is practice make perfect. You need to keep on practice, read. So that is how you can improve yourself as a researcher. All right. Okay, that's all from my author's point of view. And for the reviewer part, I will pass it on to Dr. Eugene. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chang, for your insightful sharing. Yeah, so yeah, the floor is for you, Dr. Eugene. Thank you.
Right.
For all the participants, you can post the questions in the chat box. Later on, we will have a Q&A section. Thank you.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Eugene, we can hear you.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Okay, let me share my slide first. Okay, so all right, I hope you can see my slide.
Yes, we can say that.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so yeah, thank you, Sergi, thank you, Amber, for hosting this wonderful event. Okay, so and yeah, I believe that we have gone through an hour of this wonderful speech by Prof. Cham, okay, on publications and how to prepare for publication. So my role here is that, all right, I'm going to take another perspective in which I wish to share with you from my personal point of view as the manuscript reviewer in how we are going to evaluate people, when it comes to reviewing. All right, so first of all, just quick introductions. Okay, I'm Eugene from UCSI GBS. All right, so I'm in the field of marketing, and yeah, I do marketing research, okay, and consumer behavior research. Okay, so okay, I'm very fortunate to take won this outstanding reviewer by APJML, okay, from Emerald Publishing. Okay, so basically I have been a reviewer, since my master. Okay, during my master degree, I already start to review for different journals. All right, so at this point of time, I have reviewed about 138 papers, okay, from different journals, including Industrial Management and Data System, Internet Research, European Journal of Marketing, International Journal of Retail and Distribution Management, and so on. So basically, averagely, I review about 6 to 8 papers, a month. All right, so I have read different articles, and to them, I'm very familiar with this kind of evaluation process. Okay, so in this year, all right, so I'm very fortunate to be invited to sit on the board for of the journals here. Okay. All right, so let's get into our main point today. So we're going to see, okay, how peer review works in scientific publications and what matters the most in the peer review process, and how, as a reviewer, what is my expectations? Okay, what am I expecting from you as an author whenever I receive a submission? All right, so first we talk a little bit about peer review itself, especially for the knowledge of those who are new in publication world. So basically, the peer review process or peer review model, it assist to help us to validate, okay, the publication's quality and suitability. So it is the model for us to evaluate scientific research, and we rely on this kind of model to judge whether a research, okay, is worth to be published or not. So I believe Prof. Cham has gone through this with us for this peer review process. So I will skip this. Okay, so whatever we have learned from Prof. Cham just now, okay, is just 50%, okay, of reaching, completing the journey to publication. Okay, you have to always remember that, by completing a paper doesn't mean that it is ready to be published. So more importantly, what we have now here in the peer review system, and the peer review process itself is by far perhaps the most difficult part in the publication process, and it can be very torturing, when it comes to publishing, especially in top ranked journals. Okay, the process is not only time consuming, but we have to deal with a lot of these very harsh comments from the reviewers, and sometimes because of the reviewers' comments, we even need to, to a certain extent, rewrite the entire paper. This is possible. This also happens to many of us. All right. So basically, what I'm going to share with you today is, what a reviewer wants. Okay. So whenever you have submitted your paper, we might be wondering, okay, what is actually driving the reviewer's decisions, whether to accept, whether to ask for minor, major revisions, or whether to reject a paper. What do they want? Okay, many authors are, frustrating, on this matter. Do they want contributions? Do they want a very novel method to be applied? Do they want to see a very comprehensive literature? Or, they are more focusing on presentation's quality. Yeah. So let's see. So what you might be surprising here, just seeing me saying that scope and formatting could be one of the most critical part you need to pay attention to, because without fitting the scope of the journals, without proper formatting according to the journal guideline itself, you might not even pass through editorial desk. Meaning to say that the editor might just reject your paper, before he or she pass your paper to the reviewers. Meaning to say that by failing at this, seemingly basic part of it, yeah, you might not even get your paper through the review process. So please be very careful on this. So here, I'm going to share you a rejection letter. So let's have a look at it. So dear authors, thank you for submissions. I have read the paper with great interest, but I cannot send it for review for the following reasons. The contributions of the manuscript are incremental. We at PMN encourage authors to conduct multi-studies for robustness and generalizations of results. However, the current manuscript collected data with a single survey, which is not in line with our policy. Sorry for the news. I do hope you continue this line of work and take our PMN as an outlet for your future research. So you can see here, just a simple letter as this can eventually, kill your hope, in publishing in a certain journal. And you can see here, one of the most important issue raised in this letter is that the contributions of the manuscript are incremental. This is by far and also the most common reasons for rejections. So let's see, what editors and reviewers want. What do they mean by contributions? So in fact, we have to learn that the term contribution itself is very subjective in nature. And that is what makes authors, journey to publications even difficult. Yeah, because I myself, as an author, I would feel that, yeah, my paper, is full of contributions. I make a lot of contributions. How can you not say this? But at an editor and reviewer point of view, your people, in a bad sense, it's just to them could be just a junk. They might see your paper is comprised of nothing new. So that's why we really need to be focusing, okay, on the originality, okay, originality, because it somehow later it will tie back to contributions. So what is originality then? All right. So as you can see from the slide itself, originality, refers to the production of new findings and theories, or more broadly as using a new approach or theory, method, or data, studying a new topic, or doing research in an understudied area, or producing new findings. And this is what we can learn from the word originality itself. So from my point of view, or from my personal observations or opinions, whenever I receive a paper, reaching my mail, the first thing that I open the paper, the first thing that I would do is that I would just go through the paper for a quick one. Okay, so I would just browse through the paper, look at the model, look at a little bit of the abstract, and the conclusion, to derive my first impressions towards this paper. And this is also one of the ways that many reviewers are applying. But of course, different reviewers have many different ways of reviewing a paper. So I just sharing what I did as a reviewer. So by looking at the model, okay, most of the time, okay, when what we are doing, our research always contain a model. So by looking at the model, more or less, I would know that, okay, whether this paper potentially can potentially contribute to the literature or not, or can potentially, does it carry contributions? I can say it by looking at the model itself. So first thing that I would ask, whether I should reject or accept or ask for revision for this paper, is that I will ask, is this research carrying adequate, original, or novel, or important information to the field of study? Okay. So the second question, okay, that I will ask that, how is this study different compared to the existing published work? And these two questions are very important for you as an author. So you always have to ask yourself, whenever you have completed a paper, you have to see, in your entire model, which part of the model is new, okay, which part of the model is, consists of something novel, consisting of something different from the literature. Of course, at this point in time, I'm not going to say that whenever we do research, we need to mix a radically new, model, or radically novel model. We have to do something in which, in the world, we never have seen this before. Okay, no. But what we want is that at least some part of the model is, let's say the variable itself, the relationship between variable itself is relatively unexplored, right? So this could be very different from asking you to do an entirely new things that no one has done before. So originality or this kind of contribution is almost important, especially for top journals. Okay, so let's take Academy of Management Review as an example. You can see that they even tell you explicitly on their website that their aim is to publish, theoretical insights that can advance understanding of management and organization. Whatever you have written, whatever you have done, must be able to extend theory in certain ways, right? So it's either you improve the theory, it's either you develop a new theory to the management, or it's how you come up with something fresh. Yeah? So this is what is demanded by top journals nowadays, all right? And this is probably the most important criteria for all submitted papers, okay? So, but at this point in time, we keep saying that, yeah, we need to contribute to theory. We need to have theoretical contributions. And our originality, to a very large extent, is very much relying on, our theory, okay? What we can do to the existing theory, what we can do to the existing body of knowledge, how can we improve that? How can we advance that? How can we offer something new? So back to the, basis 101 here. So what is theory then? Yeah. But speaking of theory, people, many of us would, start, oh, what is theory? Yeah. But it seems to be very simple. But when it comes to understanding it, understanding the essence of it, understanding how to improve it can be very tricky and sometimes very difficult. So put it simple, a theory, is a very thought out explanation, okay, of a particular phenomenon, okay. It helps to explain to us, what are the factors to be studied and how different factors can be interrelated in explaining some things, all right? And it also highlights the conditions and boundaries of relationships. So I provided two very popular, theories here, okay, in which we saw theory of planned behavior and technology acceptance model. I believe many of you, almost all of you, could have heard of these two theories, right? So these are what we call theories, and you have to know that. Okay, now you know what is theory. The next step is how you can contribute to theory. So now I'm still, as a reviewer or as an cases examiner, I'm still seeing many people today, especially students or early career researchers, they're still trying or they are very tempted to apply all this very well-known and very established theory in founding their research. So, but then I'm not saying that it is wrong. In fact, it is not wrong. But if we put you in a situation in which, first, it's not going to impress the reviewer or examiners. Second things, you would have hard time in bringing new knowledge in. Okay, when your research is very much founded in established theory like this. So then most of the time, okay, students, they would tell me, or the authors would argue in a way that, oh, all right. So I contribute in a sense that, okay, I'm trying to apply, let's say, theory of planned behavior in the context of, let's say, electrical vehicle purchase. Okay, I'm trying to apply technology acceptance model in understanding, certain things. Let's say blockchain adoption, or smart technology adoption. Yeah, things like that. But they have to learn that. Okay, we all have to learn that what you are doing is theory applications, or what we call theory testing. You are merely testing whether a theory works or not in a particular context. That doesn't really give you much in terms of theoretical contribution. What you have most here is, at most, what you can claim is that you're having what we call the contextual contributions. But this form of contributions is not going to bring you far, especially when it comes to top journal publications. You cannot rely on this sort of justifications in persuading the reviewers or editors in accepting your paper. Yeah. So, but what you can do as a reviewer, most of us, what we can do is that we should go for what we call theory extensions. So what do we mean by theory extensions here? So theory extensions can take many forms. For example, in extending the theory, you can ask yourself the 3W. First, we talk about the why. Why in terms of what? For example, now we know that, okay, for example, I'm in the field of, let's say, I'm in the field of influencer marketing. So I know that, okay, and the attractiveness attribute of an influencer, social media influencer or celebrity, okay, can stimulate people to purchase the endorsing products. Yeah, I know that. Okay, whenever I see a very pretty, influencers, I would tend to buy the products endorsed by her. But now, this is what existing theory tells you. Okay, let's say we talk about source attractiveness model. Okay, you can consider it as a theory. But how are you going to extend this theory? Yeah, this is what you can do as a researcher. Drop into the causal mechanisms. Ask yourself why. This is what the existing evidence has, but you ask yourself, why is this happening? So this is a gap where you, as a researcher, you can try to fill. Yeah. So this is one way. So another way is the what. Okay. So for example, now we have know that, okay, these are the variables that can influence, let's say, these variables. Okay. Are you able to introduce some other new variables? Are you able to import, okay, variables from another field to your field, okay, and to to enhance, okay, the explainabilities of the existing models? Or are you able to change the role of the variables? For example, today, okay, again, I am trying to apply, okay, what I have done for my research or what I have reviewed, so that in justifying my case here. So let's say today I know that influencer marketing is very much taking a relational perspective. All right. So we are saying that okay, influencers there or celebrities, they're trying to generate or develop relationship with the consumers, so to enhance the endorsement performance. All right. So we have a variable relationship here. All right. So now we learn that the existing body of knowledge or literatures very much focus on the relationship itself as an independent variable. But can we try to explore its role as a dependent variable? For example, yeah, but of course, by doing this, we always need to bear in mind that all this must come with justification. For example, I could argue that, okay, now the literature has informed us that it is, why an endorsement works is because of what we call this influencer consumer relationship. Okay, the relationship element is why it works. But try to think of what is the gap here. So could it be, okay, for example, what are driving this relationship? Are we lacking? What are the knowledge we are lacking? For example, we might be lacking of Now we know that relationship is important, but how can we foster them? How can we develop them? Right? That is how you can do theory extensions with proper justifications. So last but not least, we have theory generations. Okay, this is by far the highest level of theoretical contributions. So theory generations, okay, it involves not only developing a theory from scratch, okay, like what, in the past few decades, okay, how theory of planned behavior, technology, acceptance model had been developed, all right? So at that point of time, these two theories are entirely new. That's why they can be published in top journals, okay? Something to develop a theory is not going to be easy, and it is not really recommended for junior scholars, all right? And another form of theory generation encompasses the challenge, okay? The challenge of the existing theory, okay? What you need to do is that you are going to prove that, okay, whatever logic, whatever explanations, whatever theory proposed now in the literature is wrong. For example, are you able to prove that the theory of planned behavior is wrong? Okay, are you able to criticize theory of planned behavior, on their validity and reliability in predicting human behavior? And not only so, not only you need to criticize, challenge the basic foundation and assumptions, but more importantly, are you able to offer replacement for it? So that's why I say theory generation is the highest level of theoretical contributions, and it is never going to be easy. All right. But what we as a researcher can do is go for theory extensions. Unless you are so outstanding, definitely you can definitely try for theory generations. Okay, and this is what differentiate also between what we call as a normal size and also revolutionary size. Okay, but of course we are not going to say that theory extensions or what we call this normal size is no way important. No, they still carries value. They still carries implications for our theoretical understanding and helping us to move our field forwards. All right, so now just now we have been, discussing on how we can contribute. Okay, of course, you need to know that before you plan or before you are trying to contribute to the literature, you have to understand what is happening right now in your field, in your field. So most of the time, okay, it will require you to, you need to see that in publishing and doing research is just like you are joining an ongoing conversations process. Okay, for example, I'm joining the influencer marketing field, so I need to know that who am I talking to, what kind of language they're using, what kind of theories they're applying, what kind of lens they're undertaking, right? And by knowing all this, then I can start to position my people, okay, framing my contributions and join and contribute to the influencer marketing field. And of course, by looking at the fourth point here, the leaders who have shared the terms of the conversation. What it means is that you need to know the seminal words in your field, okay? And who are the leaders? Who are the pioneers in your field? For example, we talk about parasocial relationships. I would know that, okay? So you cannot, you can never forget about Horton and Ward 1956, okay? For talk about luxury branding, you should know the pioneer. Talk about, what they call this, brand loyalty. Who are the pioneers? So you need to know all this before you can frame, you can start your research, okay? So framing of gaps needs to be strategic and valid, okay? So this is some sort of like the extension of theoretical contributions, right? So most of the time as a reviewer, one of the most common pitfalls made by the author is that, okay, they would tell me, all right, in this area, what has not been done. Okay, so no people have actually investigated this and this and this. Okay, no people has no research has explored the relationship between this and this. That's all. Okay, full stop there. But this is what I feel a little bit not so comfortable, okay, here, because as an author, right, you not only need to fill a gap, but what you need to do is to fill an important gap. So you need to tell me, you need to tell the reviewers, okay, why this gap is being important. Okay, so a gap is can be left there, okay, can be left unfilled, for many reasons. It could simply be because the gap itself is not important, right? So as an author, you have the responsibility to justify to the reviewers, okay, why this gap is important. Okay. So and last, what you need to remember is that, all right, not how many contributions a study will make, but rather the significance of each contribution. Why I say so is that apart from not mentioning the importance of a gap, another pitfall that authors always make is that they're trying to do everything. Okay, they're trying to do everything. Okay, I personally did that before as well, until the reviewers asked me to slash down my model, asked me to cut out this and that. Okay, because it's not about the quantity of contributions, but it's all about the significance of your of each contributions. We can see that in top ranked journals. Okay, they can publish in top ranked journals. Okay, simply by proposing, by centering, by positioning one contribution. Okay, if that contribution is significant enough, it can take you, to the top ranked journals. Okay, second thing, we talk about literature review. Okay, of course, in literature review, as a reviewer, I would care, the comprehensiveness and the depth of your review. Okay, so most of the time, okay, authors, okay, what they did is that they would either cover too much, okay, or they would cover not enough. But so these are one of the common error, I would say. So as an author, you need to be strategic. Okay, don't try to cover everything. For example, even when we talk about, let's say, tourism. Okay, tourism is a big area. In positioning yourself, you need to narrow down. Okay, what field, what area, or what branches of tourism? Could it be medical tourism? Okay, or what other tourism? Okay, so under medical tourism, sometimes you can find that, okay, the area, the scope itself is still very wide. So you're trying to narrow down again. What aspect? Okay, what aspect in medical tourism? Okay, so the literature review is not about trying to cover everything, but it's trying to cover the most relevant thing, and the output would be the identification of valuable gaps. Okay, that's most important reasons or motivations of conducting a literature review. Okay, so the next point is that, okay, as an author, remember not to describe the literature, but integrate and synthesize them. Okay, not to describe here means that, okay, you are not going to say that, okay, A for what, B for what, C for what. Okay, that is not an optimal way to present your literature review. But instead, okay, your literature review should be able to tell the readers, okay, what are the discrepancies, okay, what are the agreements areas, okay, that we can find in a specific area. That's what matter the most. And the last point is that emphasize on reason development. Okay, your literature need to be up to date. Okay, so what students or authors, okay, they might misunderstand is that, all right, my supervisor or the examiners or the reviewer asked me to include the so-called up-to-date up-to-date word in my literatures, so that I do not include, I only include, maybe studies in 2020 and above, okay? But you have to understand that, okay? So that's the reason for covering recent development, right? So we know that what's going on here, what are the trends, okay? But you also need to acknowledge, okay, the seminal works in your field, okay, especially when it comes to theoretical kind of things, okay, theory discussions, okay. For example, if you're applying technology acceptance models in your paper, okay, so you must not, okay, you can never overlook, let's say, Davis 1989, okay, or you are including TPB, right? So you can never overlook actions, 1991, although they are old, but remember they are good, okay? So that's the part how we should frame and structure our literature review. So now comes the hypothesis development, okay? So this part seems to be straightforward, okay, but just one comment, okay, one comment here. So do not ever base your hypothesis only on empirical evidence. So why I say so is that I have read and reviewed so many articles, some of them even from top-ranked journals, but I can see that many of them forget that hypothesis development is not only about giving empirical evidence. All right, it's what more important here is that you need to give sufficient theoretical reasonings, right? So, for example, you are trying to explain the relationship between A and B, right? So you're not going to tell, the readers, okay, based on this work, and this work, okay, they have found the evidence. So that is simply not enough, okay, or I would say it's a bad practice, right? So by looking at this example here, what we call a not so strong hypothesis, right? So by reading this sample here, okay, just go through it, just have a quick look at it. You can see that, okay. So this paragraph, okay, for hypothesis, why it says it is not so strong, or sometimes I could even say it is a bad example for hypothesis development, is that, okay, it does not provide me a theoretical reasonings, okay. What I, as a reviewer, what I wanted to see is that, okay, can you give me a logic? Okay, are you able to integrate theory? Are you able to integrate reasoning or a certain sort of model to explain this relationship? For example, in this example, financial knowledge and financial behavior. Okay, of course, it would be good to give some empirical evidence, but it is not going to be the major part of the hypothesis development. Okay, I need to see the element of why. Okay, why and how financial knowledge can influence financial behavior. That is what matters the most, and that is what constitutes what we call good hypothesis. Okay, so now let's move on to the next section. Okay, I think we need to. Okay, I need to go a little bit faster here. Okay, we talk about research method. Okay, this is rather structured. Okay, this section. Most importantly, you have to follow the standard reporting, okay, of the methods employed. For example, when it comes to, let's say, survey research, all right, survey research, yeah, are you, in your paper, okay, did you cover data collections? Did you cover your sampling procedures? Did you cover your sample size calculations? Did you cover what kind of research instruments that you use? Okay, so as long as you cover all this, yeah, you should be safe, from the hands of reviewers. But More importantly, okay, always remember to give justifications for whatever decisions that you have taken. For example, you are claiming that you use, let's say, purposive sampling. What is the reason that why are you using purposive sampling? Okay, you're using online survey. Why online survey? Okay, you are using, let's say, how you derive your sample size. Okay, you're claiming that, okay, you collected 200 samples. Okay, so then as a reviewer, it could trigger, my curiosity here that I may ask, why 200? All right, is that enough? Okay, do you have a power test for it? Right. So all this information, okay, need to be presented in that section. So lastly, do not ever forget about ethical standards, ethical procedures. So nowadays, just like what Prof. Chan has mentioned, most of the more and more journals, okay, they are demanding and requesting authors to provide ethical approvals letters, from the universities, in order for them to proceed, okay, with the submissions. So as an author, okay, it would be great if you get so-called ethical consent from your university before you submit your paper to the journals. It's kind of like it would help, okay, more or less it would help in impressing at least the editors, okay, at least the editor might have more confidence in your work because he or she, by looking at the letter, approval letter itself, he or she knows that, okay, this work, has gone through approvals, from proper institutions. So now when it comes to results, okay, results. So basically, not much in terms of results, but always remember that, all right, we have to present our data in a more readable manner, okay, whatever, information you put in, either in tables, in either for your figures presentations, there must be some sort of some consistencies of what you have reported, okay, and you have to make sure that your analysis, okay, is valid and strong enough to address your what do you call it, your research objective, all right. So lastly, okay, you can see that, okay, in this particular section, result or sometimes what we call data analysis sections, okay, present only your results, okay, not go in depth in interpreting them, right? So you should leave the interpretations, okay, to the next chapters, okay. But of course, this presentation style differences varies, from journals, okay, to another journals, right? So lastly, okay, this is a very important part, yet, okay, because it is the last part of the paper, many of the authors seem to take lightly on this part, and they forget about, sometimes a paper is rejected, just because of a poor discussion. Sometimes a paper, is simply doing well in the first few parts, but the discussion is so bad that the reviewers have no choice but to reject it. And discussions part, how you should write that, okay, it is very subjective and it seldom has this kind of structured guideline, all right? So different authors have different way of presenting the discussion, okay? You're going to present different style of discussion for survey research, for qualitative research, for review paper, for meta-analysis paper, for opinion papers, all would require more or less different discussions. So now I just shared with you, the most common way of how we can present our discussions. Okay, so first thing, tell the readers, okay, whether what is your findings, okay, what is your findings, okay, and relate it back to the research objective that you proposed earlier in the introduction. Okay, so first thing, relate the things back, okay, restate, okay, what you want to do, right, and then move on to each of the findings and give your interpretations, all right. So you not only you need to compare your findings to the previous literatures, but more importantly, a good research discussion would present authentic explanations for the findings. Okay, you have to show that you are the expert in the field. You have to show your critical reasonings through your discussions. All right. So, but always be careful that do not ever overstate the importance of your findings. Okay, that happens often, let's say, when it comes to practical implications. Okay, in which we will talk about it later. So after discussing your findings, right? So the next thing that you will need to do is that, okay, you need to go back, okay, go ahead to discuss your implications. Okay, so this is again the section in which you can persuade the reviewers that your work carries, carries importance and carries implications to the field. Okay, in terms of theory and in terms of practices. So for theoretical implications, right? So as a reviewer, you really need to tell the readers or tell the reviewers, again, the shortcoming of the prior studies and how your findings can further extend existing body of knowledge. Okay, for example, right? Before this study, okay, what we know, right? So after this study is conducted, okay, based on the findings, okay, what we add to the literatures, what we add to the knowledge or body of knowledge, okay. So this is what we mean by your theoretical implications, how your findings, okay, can broaden our knowledge, right? So second thing, okay, we can never overlook practical implications. Okay, this is a very important part in which many journals today they are starting, okay, to place more focus in practical implications. They want to make sure that whatever you have done not only carries theoretical contributions, but more importantly, whether your findings, the findings that you have generated, are they able to contribute to the practitioners in the industry? Are the practitioners in the industry, be it marketers, be it human resource managers, be it the government policymakers, right? Are they able to use your findings to formulate strategies or improve their existing practices? So that, okay, again, these things, okay, whether your study has practical implications or not, okay, it ties back to the phase when you are doing your model development. All right. So whenever it comes to research development, right, research idea development, we not only need to care about theory part, but we have to make sure that the model itself, okay, whatever we propose, the research idea itself can contribute to the industry practices. All right. So the last part will be the limitations and future research directions. Okay, so this is the part I would say can be very interesting. Okay, why I say so? Okay, many times, okay, we need to recognize the fact that for every research, okay, it has limitations. Okay, no research is perfect, even those published in top-ranked journals. They are not perfect. They are limited in many ways. But then, okay, what you can do is that, okay, and this is also one of the strategies that you can use, okay, when the reviewers are criticizing the limitations of your paper, right? So with this section, okay, you are going to acknowledge, okay, the shortcomings of the study, okay, what your studies may not able to address. For example, okay, let's say your study, okay, let's say you utilize the sample from a single country, all right? It could be a limitations of the study, okay? So same things it can be applied for research design, for, one of the most common command given by the reviewers today in terms of research design is that, especially top journals, they are not really favor of this survey research, okay, because of the many shortcomings of this research approach itself, okay. Many times the reviewers, okay, might ask for, either they reject or either they ask you to change your research design. For example, instead of using survey, why not you use experimental design? Instead of cross-sectional design, why don't you use longitudinal design? Yeah. Instead of relying on a single survey study, why don't you collect the second, third survey study? Right? Instead of survey study, why don't you complement it with a qualitative study? Why don't you complement it with maybe another, what do you call this, secondary, another study with secondary data? Yeah, all sort of this kind of commands in which we have to recognize that in the reality is very difficult sometimes for us to address all these commands, right? Because you and me who are doing research, we know that it is very difficult, okay, for us to conduct another study, just to address this command. So what you can do is that, okay, acknowledge all these limitations in this section. But of course, it is not as simple as, okay, we acknowledge the limitations of survey, as one of shortcoming of this study. Okay, it's not as simple as that. You really need to go a step ahead and tell the reviewers, okay, although it is not good, survey is not good enough, but how is it valid in addressing your research objective? Yeah, that is what makes your response different from the others. All right. So next thing is that in the research, right? In a research model, we hardly cover everything, right? So this is where you can chart the future path for future research, okay, future studies, what they can do, okay, how they can take in your study further, okay, what are the possible variables they can test, what are the possible relationships that can be proposed, okay. By having all these elements, okay, it makes your studies, okay, more complete, and possibly it can help to generate citations for your studies, because many authors, when they are looking for ideas, they are reading the limitations of the studies. Okay, this is where they know how they can take the field forward. So again, okay, remember for reference source, okay, or only try to limit your reference source, okay, from those quality journals, all right, and always use simple, straightforward language, okay. If possible, proofread your paper before submitting it, okay, and do some plagiarism check, okay. Yeah. So here, okay, responding to the reviewers, okay. So when we get reviewers' reports, right? So try not to address, okay, try not to address it on the spot. Leave it a few days, because I myself had gone through that process. Whenever I read the report, I feel stressed. Sometimes I feel the reviewers are wrong. I get angry, So to actually counteract that, okay, leave it for a few days, and then come back later with a more peace of mind, and then respond to the reviewer's comment in a professional and positive way. Here, I give you some samples. Okay, I give you an example of how a response letter can be structured. You can use a paragraph format, or you can put it in a table format. Most importantly, address each of the comments by the reviewer. Do not ever try to skip any of them to prevent irritating the reviewers. All right, so that's all from me. Thank you, all of you, for listening. Okay, over to you, Kimmy.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Eugene, for your sharing, and also just now, Dr. Cham, Prof. Cham, right, for your insightful sharing, right? So I guess there's some question in the chat box, and for those of you who would like to ask questions, maybe after we finish on the question in the chat box, then you can unmute yourself, right, to ask questions, right? So the question that we have in our chat box here. Okay. Just a reminder to all the participants, lecturers and students, later on we would have a group photo taking, right? So just prepare yourself after the Q&A section, right? So can we start from the question here? How does one become a reviewer, all right, from Nurul Ruwaida, right? And then is it by invitations only, or is it possible to volunteer to become one?
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks Nurul for this. Good question. So as early career researchers, right? Normally, what you can do is that normally you can nominate yourself. Okay, you can write into the editors or through system platforms, right? You can nominate yourself as a reviewer. But more importantly, if you want to get yourself in as a reviewer, what you need to do is that you need to first publish, right? So because by publishing, then only the editors will start to at least notice you, or at least have confidence in you. So without that, I would say it is possible, but a little bit difficult, for the editor to send out these invitations. Okay, try to get published first.
Yeah, I think Nurul is actually very interested to be a reviewer. Okay, so that is great that you have a point of view here. So yeah, I think that is the way that a publication and then come together with reviewer, right? So thank you for Prof. Eugene for the answer. So we back to the questions also from Nurul Ruwaida. Hi, Dr. Cham. What does it mean to manipulate data? Can you give an example of manipulations?
Okay, I think this is thanks, Dr. Kimmy, for the question. All right, this is a very interesting one. Okay, what is meant by manipulation of the data? All right, in layman terms, after you try to run analysis with a certain software, right? Initially, when you look at output itself, it's not significant, but it's just a matter of how you tweak it, massage the data, then you'll get the significant result. So that is what we mean by manipulation of the data. So you won't be surprised that many of the reviewers, like for example, Dr. Eugene and myself, we have been, not to say expert in statistics, but we know basic statistics and how statistics works. By looking at your p-value, standard deviations, and also some of your confidence interval, technically speaking, it can give us some pictures whether that particular output is considered genuine or vice versa. So that is basically manipulation of the data. Try not to do it by all costs, because it will have a great impact on your career as a researcher and also academic. Worst case scenario for those who are in academic, so sorry to say that I need to be very honest with you, if you are being caught, you can say that's the end to your career. That is how serious it is when it comes to this kind of offense in a research world. Yeah, I hope that I did not frighten you. All right, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Cham, for your answer. Right, so I do believe that Nurul get some insightful benefit from your answer. Right, so we would go into the next questions. from Pom Sol Herbs, right? So how do we qualify one paper to publish? I think just now the slide did explain, but maybe you can further clarify on this. And second question, what are the weakness points which usually journals reject one paper? Yeah. Either Prof. Eugene or maybe Prof. Eugene, you can answer these questions. Yeah, thank you.
So let me go through with the second question, okay? So for the weakness or reasons for rejections, all right? So just like what I have mentioned, okay, earlier, right? So first, normally, okay, I would say that a paper would be rejected because of the lack of contributions. This is the most common reason for rejections, all right? So because journals nowadays, okay, they wanted to see something new instead of you doing a replicate research, by because to them there's no point for you to reinventing the wheel, right? So by keep telling people there's the same thing. For example, if I tell you now attitude can lead to intentions, right? This is the relationship between these two variables has been well tested, has been established. So what is the point, right, for you to retest this relationship again? So just make sure that in your people, there must be some newness or novelty, okay? So that is what I can say is that the most common reasons for rejection. But they, of course, there are others, for example, like the flaws in terms of conceptualizations or conceptual developments, or the flaws in terms of your research designs. Sometimes, okay, what I've seen is that, okay, the authors, okay, in fact, use a state-of-the-art methodology, superb, those kind of very sophisticated methodology. But eventually, when I read through the paper itself, the methodology itself, okay, it's very superior, but it tells us nothing, right? It just the outcome is the same, okay, with what with the rest of the papers that have employed other kind of methodologies, but eventually the outcome are the same. So yeah, that are some opinions, okay, from my side.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Prof. Eugene, for your answer. Right, so maybe we can have one more questions from the chat box. But for my personal, I would like to ask some questions because I think our lecturers and also students, we are new researcher. We just finish our PhD, or we are currently doing our PhD in graduate school business. So we would like to ask would you encourage us to focus in one area, like what Prof. Chan mentioned? He actually doing on the medical tourism and which is actually a niche research area. So would you encourage us to do in one specific area, to be professional in that specific area, or should we actually relate our life together with the research, and then to be in a multiple or diversified in our research area? Yeah.
Dr. Eugene, please. I think
Okay.
this answer the question is direct to you.
Okay, so all right. Okay, so this is just my personal opinions, but of course this is not going to be applied, to all of you. Okay, just what I think, as a researcher. Simple answers, I would say yes. Try, especially for early career researchers, I would say that it would be good, right, for you to focus in one area. For example, let's say you are into mobile payment. Let's say you are into influencer marketing, medical tourism. Just pick one, right? So from here, okay, over the time, you will be recognized, okay? Since if you keep publishing, you will be recognized by the field, you will be get known for it. So oftentimes, I always tell my students that, okay, try to focus on one area, try not to cover everything, because at the end of your PhD or when you are coming out as a researcher, I want you to be recognized, be known for something. So this Because if you diversify yourself in too many areas at the early phase of your career, right, it would kind of dilute the impact there. So short answer, I would say yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Prof. Eugene.
Okay, Dr. Kimi. Yeah, maybe I add on this one. All right. Okay, so the question is a very interesting one. I also concur with what Eugene say. You have to work on the area in your expertise, because when it comes to career advancement as well, if you want to join at a university, usually the person who going to recruit you will look at your profile and look at your publication as well. So if you mentions that your PhD in marketing, so I will look into how many marketing journals that you have with you, that you already published in it. So that's how you make yourself distinctively different compared to the rest. All right, that's my feedback from the administrator point of view. Thank you.
Yeah, it is short and precise. Yeah, thank you for the feedback and also advice. I think it's also benefit for the other researcher here as well, right? So I think it's not easy for both of you actually come into this this career, and then you even mentioned that reviewer is actually sometimes it's actually unpaid one, and then you still need to look into all the papers, right? So you need to spend time and effort, and then yet you are having here to share with us on your experience, right? I think we can actually go to the last questions here, whereby from Dr. Anna. In relation to the data findings, if the result is not significant and reported as such, what is the implications in the publication? Yeah, her question here.
Okay, very interesting question. Okay, if let's say your result is significant, to me it's very simple. We must be honest. Because if let's say your result is not significant, it could be one of the findings as well. So it's just a matter of how you're going to tell the storyline. If let's say in the past, many of the past literatures are indicated that there is a relationship between A and B, but in your case here, if let's say there is not, so you need to argue your case, maybe from the cultural perspective or maybe in the different context that you can justify your case. But again, it all depends on who are the one reviewing your works. If let's say they want something to be, they already expected the things to be significant, you might, depends on your luck during that time. But most importantly, it's a matter of justification. Like I said earlier, in research, there is no right or wrong, as long as you can justify your case accordingly. I hope that answered the question. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you, Pro Chan. Right, so I think yes, there is no right or wrong answer, but definitely when we actually we are like junior, then we can learn from both of you, right? So we can actually pretty show and then to reduce some of the mistake in our publications, right? Yeah, I think yeah. And then Dr. Ina is actually saying that thank you, Associate Prof, right? So both of you, right? So I think there's right now it's actually 4:03 p.m. right now. So I think William is here as well. Thank you, William, for attending from Emirate Publishing, right? So we need to have a group photo right now. So everyone, the participants, or the lecturers, or the students from Graduate School of Business, or you are even from other university, UCSR, from public university, then you can actually just on your camera so that we can have a group photo together, right? So our committee here will help to take our photo here, okay, together with our two speakers here, Associate Professor Dr. Cham and also Assistant Professor Dr. Eugene, right? Both very young and smart researcher here. All right, thank you for your sharing, right? Hi, Shirley is here as well. Jancy. Hi, everyone can open up your camera. Hi. Okay. Hi, Gao Fen. Hi, Prof. Gita. Right, so hi. Hi, William. Okay, so in the counting of everyone ready? So in the counting of 3, 2, 1, then we would take the group photo together. So give a big smile to the camera. All right. So are we ready? Okay, so in 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, wait for a moment. Another page, because today we have I think the maximum numbers goes to 174 participants today. All right, so thank you for all the participants. I hope that our section here, pre-conference, how to publish successfully from the author and reviewer perspective, really do help you in the journey of publication. We know that it is sometimes it's not so easy, right? But this is actually slowly but surely a journey, right? Okay, so second page. Hi, Chu Ping. Hi, good to see you. Danilo. Okay, okay, all right. Okay, camera on. Hi, Prof. Okay, our committee here requests to see your beautiful face, right? Okay, the last page here. Okay, hold on. Okay, keep smiling. Ready? Okay, ready? So 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, that's great. Okay, I think the designer is ready, right? Okay, everything is done. So thank you all for attending. Thank you for opening up your camera and to see all of you here. All right, so with that, for the participants, the certificate of participants, Dr. Zayana will actually post it in our committee would post it in the chat box here. Yeah, William, yeah, thank you for support us and then to make this seminar a successful. All right, so wait for a moment. Dr. Zaya, you can post the link here.
Okay. Okay.
So for the participants, all the participants, yeah. Okay, we come to the end of our seminar here. We would like to thank you for our speakers here. Okay, so as the appreciation tokens to Associate Professor Dr. Cham Ta-Hui, all right, we will issue you the certificate of appreciation from our Dean of Graduate School of Business and also myself, the chairperson of the CBAS conference, all right? And same goes to, we would like to send our token of appreciations to Assistant Professor Dr. Eugene Hao Chen Si, right? So for sharing us with your insightful sharing, right? I think we have like 1 hour from each one of you is not enough, right? So perhaps in the future we have some collaboration together, like since Dr. Cham and also Dr. Eugene is actually from UCSI and with Segi, perhaps we can have like some others collaboration in future, right? And then you can actually invite us to your conference in the future, right? So yeah, thank you so much for having here. And then I think that's the end of the section here. And tomorrow, okay, please, all the participants, please get your certificates through Dr. Zayana posting at 407. So when you click on this link, you can able to download your certificate. Okay, whoever you have attended and you have registered with us, the certificate has been signed by both of our speakers, all right, Prof. Chan and also Prof. Eugene, and our Segi management as well. So you can just download and then we will send you an email to after this section, right? And then another thing is actually when you can see on our slide here, we were having our conference, CBAS conference tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. All right, 9 you can actually join us. All right. So for those we managed to get 42 papers submitted. All right, this is our very first conference. All right, so our very first conference in Graduate School of Business. So we would like to have your support to attend to be the witness of our first conference here. All right, so definitely yeah, thank you once again for Prof. Chan, Prof. Eugene, and also William, right? And then of course our Dean of Graduate School of Business, Prof. Lawrence. All right. So with that, thank you for all our students and lecturers for attending, and see you during our conference tomorrow. All right. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Chan. Thank you, Prof. Eugene. Take care.
Bye bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you
Keep
very
in
much.
touch. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you, Anna.
Madhu. Yeah. Thank